Patients are often left confused or in the dark about what's going on with their medical situation, and that robs them of the ability to advocate for themselves and be an extra layer of a safety net to help avoid harm, to help avoid negligent medical care, because everyone is human. It's normal to sometimes make mistakes, and unfortunately, some mistakes that healthcare professionals make can result in devastating outcomes. But if a patient is there as an extra layer to advocate for themselves, to remind the healthcare provider, they can be the actual one to prevent harm.
Giving birth is one of the most significant events of your life. Sadly, the joy that you should feel can often be replaced with anxiety and helplessness instead. As a labor and delivery nurse, I'm revealing insider information to educate you, reassure you, and decrease your fear. In this podcast, you'll hear empowering birth stories and experts weigh in on a range of topics. Being Jewish also has me exploring Judaism's influence on the reproductive experience. However, I speak to anyone wishing to navigate their journey with more joy and confidence. I'm your host, Chani Fingerer, and you're listening to the Happy Birthway Podcast.
Welcome to episode 55 of the Happy Birthway Podcast. The last week has been a whirlwind for me, but before I tell you about it, I wanted to let you know that I will soon be opening the floor to you, my audience, to tell me your birth stories. Within the next few weeks, I will be releasing a form for applicants who want to be on the podcast. If you are interested, then go to my website, yoleditacademy.com, and subscribe to the email list so that you can be the first to find out when it's released. I will include the link to subscribe in the episode show notes. Okay, so besides for getting back from camp and resettling into real life, I also gave a deposition this week. Some of you might know that I consult as a nurse expert for medical malpractice cases within my scope of expertise, meaning to say my experience working as a labor and delivery nurse for 8 years and the certifications and education that it took to get here qualifies me to give my opinion on the standard of care in this discipline. So usually what happens is that I get a call or an email from a lawyer telling me that there was a patient who had some bad outcome at some point during their stay at the hospital, and they are wondering whether that outcome was a result of some form of negligence or malpractice. And they want me to review the medical record, which can be hundreds and thousands of pages long, and string it all together to actually illustrate the story of what happened in a given situation. Once I put the story together, I can then investigate as to whether the labor and delivery nurse or nurses provided the reasonable nursing care that they should have, given the particular details in the case. This is called the standard of care, and it's a common phrase used in these lawsuits. In many cases, there can be a bad outcome without anyone doing anything wrong. So no one violated the standard of care. They provided reasonable care. A lot of times in medicine, especially in obstetrics, we can do everything right, but still have an undesired outcome, and that wouldn't be anyone's fault. On the flip side, sometimes healthcare professionals may violate the standard of care, but it doesn't necessarily result in direct harm to the patient, and so they can't be sued for that. At the end of the day, unless there was some undesired, unexpected adverse outcome, there's no actual lawsuit to be had. It's interesting because when people find out that I'm a labor and delivery nurse, they often tell me their own birth stories and experiences. It's cathartic for them, and if they encountered something negative, they are seeking validation from someone who sees birth day in and day out. Some of them had undesired outcomes during their birth or were mistreated by a staff member, and they're left wondering whether they can sue the hospital or doctor. So it's interesting for me to hear their stories because I love to learn firstly about the patient's perspective. And I also love filling in the gaps in their understanding of what happened, if I can. A lot of times when I explain why certain things happened or why they received a certain treatment or why they didn't receive a treatment they thought they should have, I see things click in their heads and they are reassured that whatever happened couldn't necessarily have been prevented if the providers acted differently. And that reassurance is priceless, because coming away from your birth with doubts in your head about whether things could have been different really haunts you.
Having a fussy, nonstop crying baby can take all the joy out of motherhood. Is it gas? Is it constipation? Is it colic? It's hard to know, but there is a solution for all of those. Happy Tummy is a waistband that comes with an herbal pouch. When you microwave the pouch and apply the waistband to your fussy baby, your baby is instantly soothed. That's thanks to a natural formulation of herbs including flaxseed, chamomile, lemongrass, peppermint, spearmint, and lavender. Happy Tummy is all natural, no drugs or drops. And not only does it quickly soothe your baby, but it smells terrific. Happy Tummy also has adult-sized waistbands, which mothers love for cramps, stomach aches, and backaches. Use my code HAPPYBirthway for 10% off your whole order on happytummy.com. That's HAPPITUMMI.com, code HAPPYBirthway for 10% off. If you have been struggling with nausea and vomiting from your pregnancy, Ematerm might be the answer for you. Ematerm is a safe and effective anti-nausea wristband that prevents and relieves nausea and vomiting induced by pregnancy or motion, such as car and boat rides. It releases a low-frequency pulse that travels through the body's nervous system to the part of the brain which controls the stomach. This interrupts the nausea signal pathways. Ematerm is FDA cleared and designed to put you in control when you need drug-free therapy with no worries about potential side effects. Users can choose from 5 levels of intensity to achieve the best effect. The unique wristband design holds the device in place and makes it easy to put on and take off. It is FSA and HSA eligible, comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and a 1-year warranty. Go to Ematerm.com, that's EMETERM.com, and use code HAPPYBirthway for 20% off of your purchase. You can find the link in the episode show notes.
What I found helpful to do when you experience something negative in your birth is to debrief about it with your provider as soon as you can after it happened. If your doctor or midwife is not available to do it, see if you can do it with your nurse. And just sit down after the event when things are calmer and have a conversation with them. Ask them what happened. Do you know why it happened? What was done for it? Was there anything that could have been done differently? These are all really helpful questions to ask. I try to do it if I can with my patients, especially after they've given birth before I transfer them. I sit down and ask them if they have any questions about what happened. And most of the time, they have so many questions that it's actually surprising to me what they did and didn't understand about the event. Sometimes as professionals, we get so caught up in what we're doing, especially if it's something that we do often. And it's easy for us to forget that this is not routine for the patient and that we need to be explaining more. You know, it's common to take for granted that people know certain things when often they don't, or when someone is whisked into an urgent cesarean and their husband is waiting outside of the operating room, afraid and wondering what happened, and we delivered them and they had a healthy baby and everything is good. Remembering to come out and let their husband know, because if it's an emergency C-section, then usually the patient has general anesthesia, which means that they're not awake. And if that happens, then most hospitals don't allow anyone outside of the healthcare team into the room, because the rationale for allowing the birth support person in is to give support to the actual patient. And at that point, if the patient is sleeping, then they don't need that support. I've also found that this is why statistics show that patients who are included in the decision-making process with their medical care are less likely to litigate. This is called shared decision making. That means that the healthcare providers continuously educate the patient about what's going on with their health and inform them of their options and give them a say when deciding the plan of care going forward. Most of the time, it includes really getting to know your patients, like understanding their preferences, their values, their goals. I actually did an entire podcast about it with Pamela Hetrick, who is a nurse midwife and fellow expert witness. Really gets into the nitty-gritty about what shared decision-making is and why it's such a great model of care. And I'm guessing that she's just as passionate about it as I am, meaning to say about the shared decision-making, because she sees the same things that I do in this legal consulting work, where patients are often left confused or in the dark about what's going on with their medical situation, and that robs them of the ability to advocate for themselves and be an extra layer of a safety net to help avoid harm, to help avoid negligent medical care and harm to themselves, because everyone is human. It's normal to sometimes make mistakes, and unfortunately, some mistakes that healthcare professionals make can result in devastating outcomes. But if a patient is there as an extra layer to advocate for themselves, to remind the healthcare provider, say the nurse is giving them a medication that they are allergic to or have some contraindication for, and somehow it got missed by the medical team, them saying, hey, what medication is this? Oh, I'm allergic to it. They can advocate for themselves and be the actual one to prevent harm. And I'm sure many of you listening to this have been in situations like this yourselves. And that actually brings me to the topic of featuring the next awesome podcast by a Frum woman. And that is the Be Impactful podcast by Rivki Itzkowitz. It's dedicated to interviewing women from all walks of life that are making an impact on the world. I'll let you hear more about it in her trailer.
Hey, lovely. My name is Rivki Itzkowitz. I'm the creative director of Impact Fashion, a line of modest clothes available in sizes 2 through 24. And I'm also the host of the Be Impactful podcast, where I get the opportunity to talk with women of all types and stripes, making a difference in their own corners of the world. When I first started my company, there was someone who I really looked up to. I was perusing her Instagram page and her photos always look so polished. And I was like, I want to have a company like hers. And then I actually met her in person. And turns out that she was improvising just as much as I was. And too often we fall into that trap. We get preoccupied with what everyone else around us is doing, that we fail to recognize the greatness in ourselves. I believe that by sharing our struggles, journeys, and how we got to where we are, we bring everyone a little closer to feeling better in our collective skin. Together with my guests, some of whom you've definitely heard of and others you probably haven't, we do that deep dive into success, failure, and the journey to becoming our own person. Join us wherever you're listening to this podcast as we discover what it means to be impactful.
I was lucky enough to be interviewed in Rivki's podcast back in May of this year. And I brought up the topic of shared decision-making when she described the care that she received from her doctor. It was a perfect example of how it can play out and how this form of communication really establishes trust in the provider-patient relationship. She also was on my podcast in episode 49. I got phenomenal feedback about that episode, so I highly encourage you to go listen to it if you have not yet. Before we continue, I wanted to let you know about a revolutionary diaper brand called Dyper, D-Y-P-E-R. These eco-friendly diapers are made with viscose from bamboo, so they're soft on your baby's skin while still being extra absorbent to handle your baby's biggest accidents. Dyper wants to pass on the savings directly to you by cutting out the middleman. They ship your diapers to you for a low, predictable price with no extras or gotchas. Set your subscription and let them deliver the exact quantity you need. If you need more, they'll deliver them promptly with their exclusive SOS service. If you need less, send them
them back with a prepaid label. You can precisely manage your deliveries using their website or their mobile app. One of the products that I think is really cool is their Diaper Sense. It's a small sensor that you attach to your baby's diaper, and it continuously monitors the temperature and humidity surrounding their skin. It will help you optimize your diaper changes, reduce overall diaper use, and may help reduce instances of skin rash due to prolonged exposure to moisture. All you do is snap it to the outside of the diaper and connect it to Diaper's app. It will notify you when number 1 or number 2 happens. Subscribe through the link in my show notes and you will get a free bonus diaper bag just for trying them out. You can cancel anytime with no obligation, but still keep the bag. KiwiCo crates are a monthly subscription of crates that come filled with age-appropriate STEAM projects for kids, from toddlers to teenagers and even adults. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Every crate explores a different theme designed to spark creativity, thinking, and learning. All projects, inspiration, and activities are created by a team of product designers in-house and rigorously tested by kids. KiwiCo offers all different product lines spanning a variety of interests and age ranges. Panda Crate is for babies from 0 to 24 months. Each crate helps babies learn by doing what they do best: playing, exploring, and most importantly, interacting with the people in their lives. Crates arrive every other month and are filled with 2 months worth of content. So if you're trying to figure out what a developmentally appropriate way to interact with your baby is, Panda Crates will take the guesswork out. For an exclusive 30% off discount on your first month subscription, go to kiwico.com, that's KIWICO.com, and enter code LEARN30 at checkout. That's kiwico.com, code LEARN30 at checkout.
If you're in a place where you're looking for a provider and trying to decide who you can really trust, a great question you can ask them is what they think about shared decision making. Their opinion might reveal a lot about their philosophy of care and whether you agree with it or not. If they say that they believe that they should be the ones making all of the decisions about your care because they know better because of their education and credentials, which, by the way, are valid and important and essential. I'm not saying that they're not, but they're not the be-all and end-all. And if they believe that you shouldn't have a say at all, it likely means that they're not going to adequately keep you in the loop about what's going on with your health. And that means that you'll lose out on having important information that can influence your ability to make decisions, which by extension can really disempower you. And even if you get a provider that practices with this philosophy, you still need to take responsibility for obtaining health education. It does not absolve you for that accountability because it's impossible for every provider you encounter to thoroughly educate you, especially when it's a short encounter with them, and especially when it's kind of like in a hospital setting. It's impossible. So you need to take accountability for your own health by getting educated. And so, my friends, these are some of the lessons that I've learned through my nurse expert witness work, and I hope they're helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list so that you can find out when I release the application to be on the show. And till next week.
Thanks for tuning into the Happy Birthway podcast. Head over to Yoledet Academy on Instagram to continue the conversation. You'll find the link in the episode show notes, as well as links to any additional resources, products, and services mentioned here. If you love listening to this show, you can help it grow by sharing it with your friends and rating and reviewing it. To stay in the loop when new episodes are released, make sure to subscribe. Remember that your health needs are unique and require individualized medical advice. The podcast is not a replacement, and some of the information may not be appropriate for your specific circumstances. My mission is to educate you so that you can confidently collaborate with your healthcare team. I believe that a healthy mom and healthy baby are simply not enough. We also need a happy mom with an empowering birth experience.